Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of Why We Grow. Today, I had the great opportunity of meeting with Kathy Jentz. She is an amazing author. She has written a couple different books that I had the opportunity to buy right before I interviewed her. So it was so incredible to actually meet her in person. She had a lot of amazing fun facts and advice for gardeners. I hope you find her interesting. Well, thank you, Kathy, so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Carrie.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about yourself and your background. I haven't been following you for very long, so I'm really excited to hear a little bit more about you.
Sure. So I am a journalist by training,
Yeah.
always curious, always into things. And but for my personal background, I was born in Germany. I'm an army brat, so we moved around a bit, and both sides of the family are gardeners and farmers. So German side, they had an allotment garden for 99-year lease, which is your typical, that's where you spend your weekends in Germany, is at your allotment. And
Mm-hmm.
then my dad's side of the family, farmers in Northwest Indiana. So I would spend summers out there helping in the broad sense of the term. I wasn't doing too much weeding or farming, but I would help in the apple orchard or wherever you could.
Oh, that sounds like fun. So you had an
Mhm.
apple orchard? That sounds cool.
Yeah, so it was my grandfather's apple orchard. Mainly the farm at that point, when I was there, was corn, and then he had vegetable beds closer to the house, and he
Mhm.
would sell the vegetable beds like beans and carrots and other things to the local grocery stores and straight off the farm. So people would come to the garage and he would have it, and he had a little scale there and a calculator. And at 8 years old, I was like trying to figure out scale to calculate. I was like, $1? And they were like, sure.
Wow. So
So,
you grew up just all around this
mhm,
your whole life. Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
And my parents had a community garden plot too as we were growing up. This is like 70s, 80s. So it was just, typically, they put out a stake in the middle of a field and said, this is your 10 by 20-foot plot or however big it was. And there was no water source for that one. I remember distinctly it was at the top of a hill and there was no water, and we had to haul water from home in milk jugs. And that was like part of my job. And I did not like gardening at that point. I was not a happy camper in the hot summer sun in the Washington, D.C. area hauling water. But that's
Wow.
when our community garden started across the street from me. I made sure we have a cistern, and I am one of the closest plots to that cistern. So I can only have to haul water about 20 feet away.
Well, that's great. So, at what point did you start to like it?
I think it was when I got my first place of my own. Like a
Uh-huh.
lot of people, you're like, it sinks into you by osmosis. I always had plants and house plants around the house and wanted to be surrounded by flowers.
Yeah.
And my first condo, it was a walkout condo. Like I had a big concrete patio and then surrounding area. And I just was like, I'm gonna want everything that flowers. So I just bought everything that flowers and filled up as much as I could. And sheer luck, south facing, directly south facing.
Oh,
So
that's
everything
great.
was like boom. And neighbors would come by and be like, "Oh, how'd you grow this? And how'd you grow that?" And then I started gardening the outside area, outside my patio area, outside the fenced area, and then more and more and more and more. And then the condo board was like, that's not your area, Kathy. Even though it looks great, you don't own that. And that's when I realized I need a place of my own. So I just look for a small house with some land around it. And so that's where I am now, in a very urban corner, surrounded by all gardening beds and some big trees and no lawn at all.
Oh, that's amazing. You'll have to send me a picture of it so I can see that.
Hmm.
Is that there in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, so I'm right on the Silver Spring, Maryland side of the Washington, D.C. border. So for those who know the D.C. area, if they know where the old Walter Reed Hospital is, I'm directly north of that. So a lot of people are familiar with Walter Reed. And I was going to say, in my new book that's coming out in February on ground covers, I believe there's a before and after picture of my corner. I
Oh,
don't,
that's
I don't,
cool.
so that at least tells people, shows like, I think it is that the all grass when I first moved in and then no grass after like 3 or 4 years.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm gonna have to check that book out.
Mhm.
I did get your book.
Yay.
I had to order
Yay.
it and check it out before I had you on. I was like, ooh, I
Yep.
loved it. It was awesome. I haven't gotten a chance
Thanks.
to read all of it, but I've looked through it and it's super helpful. It's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really easy to dip in and out. Like, definitely don't have to sit there and read it cover to cover. It's just pick one
Yeah,
idea, flip through, pick another idea. So super easy to
yeah,
do it like that.
absolutely. Are these pictures in here from your house or are there some from your place in here? Or?
About a third of the photos I took myself that are in the book, and then the other 2/3 are from other garden writers and communicators that we sourced them from. And
Oh,
a lot that I took might have been in my garden if they're close-ups and stuff, and then others were from just going on every garden tour I could possibly go on. So there's a lot of open gardens that happen, like either the Garden Conservancy will host some in a city, or I'll be going with garden writers. The Garden Communicators International has private garden tours, or like I don't know about where you are, but like Georgetown Garden Club, that's one of their annual fundraisers is to have like 10 open gardens in an afternoon, and you just pay your ticket and you just go from garden to garden. And I'm always like, have that camera in your pocket, which is, your cell phone. So even if
yeah.
you're just walking around the neighborhood, I'm always like, well, it's legal as long as you're on the sidewalk. Like, don't don't trespass, but you can still take photos. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good photos in here. That's what I was looking through. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so pretty. People would
It's
be
very,
amazed the things that they can do in a small space.
oh yeah. Yeah, it's very photo heavy just because we wanted it to be more inspirational, like
Yeah,
literally open it up and be like,
it
boop. Yeah.
definitely is
Yeah.
that. I absolutely agree. And I do have to say the very first picture right here of the cat is my probably my favorite. I love
Aw,
it.
yeah.
Is that one of yours? Is that your
That's
cat?
not one of mine. I've
Not one of
actually
yours?
never had an orange cat, which is so
Oh
funny.
yeah.
But yeah, one of the photo editors picked that photo, and I was like, I wonder why she picked that photo.
I love it. I love
But
it.
I do have a blog that I do for fun called Cats in Gardens, and it's just cats in gardens at blogspot.com, and that's all it is every week is a picture of a cat somewhere near a plant. That's like, it doesn't have to be a full-blown garden like that picture, but just
Yeah.
any cat in a garden situation. So that's just a fun hobby blog I have.
That's fun. Yeah, well, we have four cats
Mhm.
that love the garden. So we
Oh
definitely have
yeah.
a lot of super cute cat pictures. Like the
Ooh,
cats sometimes, like we got one of them, I can remember at our old house, and she was sniffing the flowers. I kid you not. She was
perfect
like
photo.
sniffing the
Yeah.
flower. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, so you'll definitely have to share those for the Cats and Gardens blog. So
Absolutely.
we're
Yeah.
always like tagging people, and we're like, when you travel, even if it's not your cat, if there's a cat staying at the Airbnb with you, take a picture of that cat.
Awesome. So where do people send that to you? Because I'm sure people watching have cats
Yeah,
too.
so if you just go to the catsandgardens.blogspot.com, and January 1st every year, I put up the how to send in your picture. So, and you could just put it in the search, how to submit. And then you'll just send it directly to my email. And usually people will send a paragraph or so about the cat, like especially if it's their cat, or if they're a nursery or garden center and it's the store cat. I love those stories. Like, it'll usually be like, well, this stray wandered in and now it's part of the store and customers love it. But sometimes people will write a lot, like the whole life story of the cat, and we love that when people share tons about the cats.
That's awesome. So do you have any cats in your garden then?
I do. I have one Maine Coon, big black and
Oh,
white, and he is leash trained.
that's
Um,
great.
and I won't have any credit for doing that. I just put the harness on him one day and he was like, let's go. Like, he's very good about it. And so he'll come out in the garden when I'm weeding, and he'll like sleep in the gazebo or watch me. And then I have two kittens now, two 6 months old. And
Oh.
I tried to put the harness on one and it was a no. So they're still pretty much going to be indoor kitties, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I love having our cats in the garden, but everybody always says they're always like, how do you keep your cats out of the garden and
Mm-hmm.
keep them focused on their job, like rodent control and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that? Do you have any tips for that since you have cats?
Yeah, I had a previous cat, Chantilly, and when she came out in the garden with me, she would stick close. I didn't have to worry about her or even leash train her, but she would sit under the bird feeder, and there was like a quarter-sized hole under the bird feeder, and she just stared at that for hours. So, and then one day, the only thing she ever caught in her whole life was a little vole that she pulled out of that hole. So I was
Yeah.
like, he must have stuck his head up right at the wrong time, and she got him and she was so proud of herself. But yeah, you definitely have to make sure start them young. Leash training helps. If you're like me and you're surrounded by urban roads and a lot
Hmm.
of traffic and stuff. But if you're more out in the country, it's a little easier. Then you could just start them a few minutes a day with you out in the garden, and this is the area that's okay. When they stray to another area, nope, coming back. And then usually I'll say you have to come back in the house once you went by that barrier so they know this is the line. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that you have to once you cross that, nope, it's back in the house time.
Yeah, I ended up putting have you seen those Premier One fencing? Those
Mm-hmm.
like electric netting ones. We ended up having to put that around our garden, not just because of our cats, but because our cats and our chickens, especially,
Oh yeah.
they were devastating the garden. So we had to do
Chickens can
that.
destroy. Yeah.
Yeah. The cats typically, I mean, if we planted seeds out, they would like the fresh dirt and try and
Oh
roll
yeah.
around in it.
Mm-hmm.
So what we typically did, we would lay down like hardware remesh like on top of it, and then like yeah, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we do like some burlap, things like that, and typically they
Yeah.
stayed away whenever we did things like that. So and then
Mm-hmm.
once we had the plants, they were like, oh, it's just a plant.
Exactly. They're like interested in that fresh soil smell and
Yes.
that fresh, just like squirrels and everybody else, they want to come in that fresh. So I'll just throw mulch on top, like some
Mhm.
shredded leaves after I plant something, and then they're like, I'm not interested in digging in the shredded leaves.
Oh, that's
So
a good idea.
that
Yeah.
will help, or straw or anything else, anything that creates a barrier, like the hardware cloth, until it is watered in and they're
Yeah.
not interested. But yeah, well, since you bring up chickens, I was like, I can't have chickens here because of how close we are to our neighbors. But I hear from so many people who like have this fantasy of chickens in the garden, and then they realize, no, they'll
I
do a
love
little
our
weeding.
chickens, but yes,
Yeah.
they can devastate the garden if I let them. So
Mm-hmm.
we have very controlled times when we let them in, or we adjust the fencing some if we want them to like clean out an area because they
Yep.
do fantastic pest control and they like dig in the soil and they pull out like grubs and all of that. Like they're amazing.
Yay.
But they can also do, bad things too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All
But
those little fresh little green seedlings,
mhm.
lettuces and spinach and stuff. I've seen even like not chickens, but robins. Like anything will come in and be like pluck, and you think, oh, who did this? Who would do this? And then you're like, ah, it was a little sparrow that plucked out all these because they were nice tender greens.
Yeah. You know what I've done before? We had a motion activated sprinkler
Mm-hmm.
that we've put out next to some seedlings, and that helps for cats too. But
Yep.
like cats, birds, squirrel, like all of the above, and kids. It's fun too.
I always say I give a deer and garden mammal talk, and that's one of my top recommendations is
Yes.
that motion active sprinkler. So I always say this works for every breathing
Seriously.
creature of any kind. Nobody likes to get hit with a sharp zip of water that makes that
Yeah,
his sound, that
absolutely.
startling sound. The other thing I've done is like when you have a row of little seedlings that you want to protect from somebody like plucking them out is like those strawberry little baskets, those little green baskets or anything that you can turn over a garden crate or bulb crate just to protect it until a few days till they're established enough.
Yeah.
Um, so that helps. But yeah, that sprinkler, the motion active, you have to protect yourself though, because you have to people will stop using it once they get zapped a few times.
I know. We've definitely done that before. You have to remember that you have it on
Yep.
before you go out in the
A
garden.
giant post-it note on your door or something that says, I turned it on or I turned it off.
Yeah. Oh man, too funny. So how did you go about learning all of this stuff whenever you went around?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so a lot of it, growing up with it, it was kind of there and
Yeah.
then just paying attention to it. But then, of course, when I got the huge gardening bug, that's when I just went whole hog. Like it was one of those, read every garden book I could, watch every HGTV show, every article I could grab a hold of. And then at a certain point, I was like, a lot of what I'm reading is Pacific Northwest or New England or Florida, and it's not our area here in the mid-Atlantic US in the greater Washington, D.C. area. So that's when I started to put two and two together that I want to start writing more about it and sharing the knowledge because we have the USDA in our backyard doing research and so many public gardens in our area that are doing great work. And I thought, this is a great area for gardening, but nobody's talking about it. So
Mhm.
that's when I started to blog and started Washington Gardener magazine, and then several years later, the Garden DC podcast.
That's great. So, do you make a career out of it then now?
Yeah, I would say 30% is from the blog and magazine, and then the majority is speaking. So I was telling you about speaking about deer and garden mammals. So I go around to garden clubs or garden events like the Northwest Flower and Garden Show. I'll be speaking at that in February. So a lot of it, if you had told me like even 10 years ago that that would be my main job is speaking about gardening, because before that I was like, I know I don't need to get up in front of a crowd and talk about gardening, but now I love it. That's like my favorite thing to do.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I bet that's really inspirational for you too, like to
Hmm.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and you get immediate feedback. I mean, Zoom in the last couple years, a little different, but I actually enjoyed speaking on Zoom. I love presenting on Zoom.
Mhm.
Um, but in being in front of a live audience, you definitely get more give and take and that energy, and that's so much fun.
Yeah, and it's nice to have questions too, like right then that people
Hmm.
ask, and yeah, that's great. So, what's been one of your favorite things that you've talked about?
So I did a ground covers talk, which became super popular, and that's the reason for the new book that's coming out in February.
Okay.
And another one that's near and dear to my heart is dry shade. So I don't know if you have to deal with that, but I have huge oak trees on one side of my house, and those roots suck up everything.
Mhm.
So they're deciduous, so I can do a lot of bulbs under those trees and they'll come up in the spring and the daffodils, tulips, everything looks great, does great. But once those die back, then you have a struggle. Like, what can I plant under there that I'm not constantly having to water under the oak trees? So I have like a dry shade solutions talk that people are like, yes,
I
they cannot
bet.
get in
Yeah,
the, and that's not a topic that you hear a lot about. So that one's in pretty high demand.
I bet. Yeah, I feel like we get that question a lot too, and just simply
Hmm.
just shade, like whether it's dry
Yep.
or
And
moist.
just general shade too.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah.
And that's like there's a great book by Jenny Rose Carey that came out a few years ago just called Shade, like shade gardening.
Hmm.
And that one I always recommend if you ha just have shade. And then she talks about dry shade a little bit in that book too. But yeah, that's something that everybody's, when you look at garden magazines and videos and stuff, they're like no trees overhead. It's just like cut flower
Yeah.
farm, cut flower or vegetable beds. So I was like, but if you want those beautiful old trees and to garden at the same time,
Hmm.
um, that's the struggle.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you. So, tell me a little bit more about your background and what got you into gardening and what inspires you to keep going.
Hmm. Yeah, I think in that condo, what I was t saying I was flower crazy is I was heavily into interior design and I just wanted bouquets of flowers everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
I think if it would have been today, I would have started my own cut flower farm. I would have just been like, and I see so many people doing that now and it's so big that I'm like, no, don't think about it, don't do it. But yeah, I was really into flower arranging and taking florist classes and things just for myself, not for doing it for a living.
Yeah.
But I just love flowers. I'm just in love with them. And then the food gardening part, I'm not like a big cook or chef at all. I don't know about you, but it's like if I grow it in the community garden plot, because that's where my son is across the street, is full sun over there, and I can grow more vegetables and herbs. If I don't consume it there or on the way back home, it just kind of sits in my fridge and doesn't get used at all. So I'm interested in things that you could just pop in your mouth, like, cherry tomatoes,
Mhm.
sugar snap peas, that type of thing.
Peas are the best. I feel like those
Hmm.
hardly ever make it inside too.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I always forget, like in the rush of summertime, when you're in the middle of harvesting, like you have a ton of green beans at once, and I'll make those
Mhm.
for dinner. And then I'll be like, I have a lot extra, and I'll usually donate them to a local soup kitchen. And then 3 months later, I'll be like, oh, I wish I had some green beans. And then I realize, oh, I could have frozen those. Just
Yeah.
always forget to preserve. So it's always the preserving part that never gets done. Like the
Yeah.
growing, harvesting, eating it while it's there and fresh. But then in the off season, you're like, darn it, I wish I'd made carved out some time, but you're just so busy. Like same thing with I don't know about you, but I love pesto. Pesto is so
Yes,
basil.
absolutely.
Basil pesto is so good, and you're like inundated with basil, 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 and I'm giving it away, and then I'm like, oh, I should have made some pesto.
Yeah, have you ever tried sage pesto before?
No, not just
Oh,
straight sage or mixed in with
yeah.
something else. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
sage pesto.
Hmm.
So good. I was so surprised. It was probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, I've done arugula, where
Mm-hmm.
it's like kind of two-thirds arugula, a third basil. And then I've done a spinach where it's again a mix. You have
Oh,
a little
okay.
bit of basil and the spinach works well. I think it works with a lot of greens, but yeah, I'll have to
Yeah.
try the sage one.
Yeah. It was one of my favorite. I was so surprised when we tried it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I haven't we
Hmm.
been doing this all along?
Yeah, and usually sage you'll use one or two leaves for most
Yeah.
recipes, but that would use
Yeah.
up a good amount, so that's
Yeah.
really good.
And we usually have an overflow of sage for that reason.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it was definitely a really good use of our sage when we did that.
Hmm. Yeah, and then I forgot the other part of your question because we got sidetracked on recipes and hungriness.
I know. Right now I want to
Oh,
go make some pesto. Oh.
yep. Yeah, exactly. Pesto out of anything. Um,
Well,
oh,
I'm curious though too. What at what point did you make the shift towards like doing speaking and writing
mhm.
a book and all of that? What got you to make that shift from just gardening in your backyard to doing this?
Yeah, so I was writing for my garden club that I was vice president and president of. I was doing the newsletter.
Right.
Because obviously if I was already doing journalism for a living, then
Mhm.
who's going to be drafted to do the newsletter? Me. And then I'm writing articles and posting them and getting great reactions to the articles. So then I started to send out the articles to other publications. And then that's when I was like, you know what? I want to start working for myself. And that's when I started to have the idea of starting a local gardening magazine for our area, to make it like intensely local information, but talk about everything that grows here,
Mhm.
not just edible growing or not just ornamental growing, but everything that grows here. And then I think it was like 3 months after the magazine launched, somebody invited me to talk to their club about the magazine and what was behind it. And I was like very nervous about that. I was like, no, I don't want to talk. And very reluctantly accepted the invitation and got a good reaction to that. And that then once you talk to one club, then the word spreads, right?
Mhm.
And then they're like, "Oh, we
Yes.
want you to talk to our club or that club." So, and then I found the Garden Communicators, which used to be called Garden Writers of America.
Uh-huh.
Now it's Garden Com International, Garden Communicators International, and going to their annual meetings and speaking to other members, they were like, "You should do a lot more talking." That even the ones who had published like 20 books under their name, they were like, "You're not going to make money off of books. It's the speaking. The
Mm.
books just give you the credibility and get you in the door. It's the speaking that you'll make your living off of, and that's basically similar to what's happened. Yeah.
Well, that's great. And it's terrific that you enjoy that part too then.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think I used to have terrifying stage fright, when I was first asked. And it
Uh-huh.
was funny because I took a lot of drama classes and stuff in high school and college, but still Didn't love it, didn't like getting up on stage. But now it's like when you love a topic, when you're passionate about it, that none of that, it just goes away. Like
Oh, that's good.
I
So is
could
that
talk
how
to,
you got over it?
hmm
Just because you were
yeah,
inspired by it?
exactly. And I think it's exposure too. Like they always say with phobias that, a group of 10, a group of 20, or a group of 100 doesn't matter to me anymore. I used to watch the Oscars and you'd be like, how can you talk? You got thousands of people in the room, but then millions of people are watching you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I would just be like, pass out. And now I'm like, oh,
Oh, it's not
whatever.
fun now.
Yeah. I was like, nah, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the size of the audience between one or 1,000. It's the same to me.
Well, that's great. How many times did it take you before it was natural like that?
I think maybe between 5 and 10, like
Okay.
between like the first year speaking, you get some butterflies in your stomach or you're a little nervous for the first few. And then after that, again, it's exposure. Like the more you do it, the more you get used to it. And then after surviving a few audiovisual complete meltdowns, after you get through that, you're like, I can do anything. Like there was one talk I gave and there was a thunderstorm coming in and it was a historic inn that George Washington had stayed at of all places
That sounds cool.
in Bladensburg, Maryland, and they had put me in this room, old room, and there was no air conditioning because it's an old inn, so the windows were all open, and all of a sudden the windows came down at once, like slammed
Oh my
down,
gosh.
and the electricity went out. Like we were sitting, it was like a ghost came in, like bam, psh, and
That is
pitch black.
terrifying.
Yeah, and I'm standing there in the middle of the slideshow, and I'm just standing up there like, and what, luckily, the laptop had enough backup battery that the screen was still on, like I
Uh-huh.
turned it around to the audience because it was projecting on the screen. So I turned it around as just a little laptop and turned it around and somebody got some candles and we just continued and we
Oh,
had
that's
handouts.
so funny.
So I just finished the talk like that and I was like, if I could do that, I could do anything.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I bet
But
that was super fun though. That would have
yeah,
been a good one to go to.
it was it was so dramatic though. I was like, bam, like literally, you don't usually have a slamming noise as the lights go out and then just pitch
Yeah.
black. And then now, everybody has their phones now, so they all turn your phone and turn it towards you. So at least we can see enough in the dark. And nobody was going to be driving home in the middle of that crazy storm. So
Yeah.
everybody was sticking through to the end.
So funny. Uh, so what are some good beginner gardening tips that you have for those who are just getting started out there?
Yeah, I think a good thing that we always tell beginners is not to try everything at once. Like you're just going to get crazy overwhelmed. You're going to think, I need to know all of this at once. And like everything else, pace yourself. You're not going to take my advice. I'm going to tell you right now. You're just, you're just going to go whole
Get too
hog.
excited.
You're going to get too excited, try everything, buy everything at once. But, if you can, pace yourself one bed at a time. Don't try to do everything like I did, like tear out all the lawn at the same time and try to do it all beds. So I always say, try to do one year, add another container, add another of this each year, and then build up and like reduce your lawn, add some more trees a little bit at a time. And that could be as your budget allows, not just your time and your resources. But you're gonna again want to do it all at once, and you're gonna go to everybody else's garden and be like, I want that, I want this. But just keep a journal, like a literal journal, and maybe it can just be a phone or a Pinterest page, and you won't forget. Like you'll know, like, okay, year 3, I'm gonna add asparagus beds, but maybe not year 1. And then you'll know that this is a project for incoming years. But yeah, we all get kind of greedy. And I remember being a baby gardener, and going to somebody's garden, a very experienced garden, and I saw their garden shed full of tools, and I was like, wow. Like I had like one shovel, one rake, one trowel, one pair of gloves, and I was like, how do you get all these tools and all this stuff? Now I'm like giving away tools. Like
Now you have
you
that
just
problem.
you just accumulate and accumulate and accumulate. But I was like never thought I would get to that stage of 50 shovels. Like there's no like, how do you have 50 shovels? Wow, where did you get all these things? So one of my secrets, and I will share this with beginners of how I got some of those tools right away, is going to estate sales.
Oh,
So
yeah.
moving sales, yard sales, people have to leave the country and take a job somewhere else. They're not taking all those garden tools with them. So, and usually they're
Mhm.
dirt cheap, pun intended. Like literally go to the estate sale, and then the person probably running the estate sale will have like all the tchotchkes and stuff in the house and be like, well, what about that garage and garden shed? Are you selling from there? And they'll be usually like, yeah, go ahead, root through the tools and whatever. So I got some really nice quality like Sears Craftsman and Plow and Hearth and other really nice tools for, a dollar or two, just like crazy cheap.
Yeah, that's terrific advice because you do not want to be in the middle of a project or digging something out and it
Hmm.
breaks. We've had that happen before and it is not fun. So we always have a whole bunch of backups.
Hmm.
You always want a bunch.
Yeah, and same thing at our community garden. There's like a shared pool of tools, like in a little crate in the middle. And every time I'm like, oh, I need another spading fork because you'll need two to dig out your sweet potatoes. Usually it doesn't do with just one. You need somebody on the other side helping you sometimes. So like, let's go get another spading fork for the shared tool pile. And I'll go over there and the handle's broken.
Oh,
So somebody had just broken it. So we go through a lot of tools at the community garden. So always good to have backup in your own.
yeah, absolutely. Well, great. Is there any last minute advice or words of wisdom that you want to share with everybody?
Yeah, I'll say, don't plant things just because somebody else is. How's that for advice? Because I see a lot of people who, if it's not something you love, you're like, well, I should plant these arborvitae, or, it says to do this. If you don't love tomatoes, you don't need to plant tomatoes in your vegetable garden.
Absolutely.
It can
Yeah.
be all greens, it can be all everything else. If that's not something you're going to love to eat, you might plant a row of something with the intention of donating that because, there'll be something that I don't love to eat, but I'll plant onions because I know that the chef at the food kitchen near me needs onions, but, I'm not growing them for myself. But same thing in your ornamental garden. So just because something is popular or because somebody told you, and if something came with your garden that you don't like, if it's scratchy or thorny, get it out of there. Like if it's bugging you
Yes.
every time you walk by, you're like, ugh, but whatever. You have my permission to kill that plant or put it up on, say, Buy Nothing or Free Cycle or, Craigslist to say, come and dig this little maple or whatever it is that you don't like and want out of there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, I say that too for ourselves. Like if it's something that I want to eat or that I want, I'm gonna make sure that we grow it. But if it's something
Hmm.
I don't eat, why would I grow it? So
Exactly.
yeah. Yeah, that's great advice. So how do people go about following you on social media? What social media platforms are you on?
Sure. I'm at WDC Gardner. So all one word, WDC Gardner on Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, TikTok. Not that active on TikTok, but trying.
Yeah.
On Facebook, it's under my name, Kathy Jentz. I'm at the bottom, it says at the bottom of the screen, Kathy with a K, Jentz, and under Washington Gardener magazine there. And for the website, it's washingtongardener.blogspot.com is the best one. But if you go to washingtongardener.com, it'll point you there. So that's easy too.
Great. And then I do highly recommend for everybody to check out the book too.
Yay.
It was awesome. And I think it's super inspirational for people who are looking to garden and small spaces. There's so many different ideas in there. I loved it.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, one of the dilemmas I was really trying to address in that book is I would always get people coming up to me when I would do a home and garden show booth or something, and they'd be like, ah, I wish I could subscribe to your magazine, but I don't have a garden. I have no space to garden. And I
Yeah.
was like, that is not true. You have some space to garden. Like there's a
Yeah.
community garden or there's a patio or rooftop calling your name. Like there is some space to garden. So
Yeah. I
that's a
did
lot
see
of
you
the
had a
book.
rooftop section in there and you talked a lot
Hmm.
about vertical growing and yeah, so many things for so many different people in there. So,
Hmm.
and then when's your new book coming out too?
So that is February 7th. It's due
Okay.
out. So already on Amazon for pre-order and
Oh, great.
bookshop.org. So I was excited to see it up there the other day. I was like, whoa, I don't even have my advance copy, but it's up there ready for people to order. So I'm happy about that.
Well, that's exciting. Well, I can't wait to read that one too. That'll be great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. This was fun.
Yeah. Well, we will be chatting again more again soon, I'm sure. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.